Aerie sat quietly inside the cold metal cage. Her legs were pulled close to her chest, and her arms wrapped tightly around them. The floor beneath her was rough and smelled like oil and rust. Bright white lights above her made her squint. She tried not to move. She tried not to cry. She knew the rules. If she cried, they would laugh, and if she screamed, they would hit her outside the cage. Strange alien voices filled the large, dark room. Tall creatures walked by her cage, stopping to look at her like she was some animal. In a zoo, they pointed, whispered, and made notes on small, glowing pads. One with green skin and 4 arms said, "Look at this one. Healthy skin, good teeth." Another with red eyes and no mouth simply nodded and took a picture. They didn't talk to her. They didn't ask her name. They just stared, measured, and walked away. A large alien with silver armor walked close to the bars and tapped them. Aerie jumped a little. He laughed, scared. "Are you?" He said in a deep voice, "You'll make a fine slave, maybe for the mines. Maybe for breeding, we'll see." Aerie didn't answer. She had no answers left. She had been taken from her planet 2 weeks ago. She didn't remember how many nights had passed, only that she woke up in a cage on a ship. And now she was here. The alien slavers gave her food just enough to live, water just enough to not faint. But they kept her clean. They wanted her to look fresh for the auction. Suddenly, a loud sound echoed through the auction hall. A new door opened, and all the chatter stopped. A man walked in. He was not tall like the others, but everyone stepped back when they saw him. He was human. His eyes were gray like metal, and his face had a long scar down the side. His hair was short and silver, and he wore a dark coat with many medals. "Why is a human here?" Someone whispered. "Does he plan to buy?" Another said, laughing, "No human spends this kind of money on slaves." The human ignored them all. He walked slowly between the cages, not speaking. When he reached Aerie's cage, he stopped. He looked at her not with hunger, not with greed, but with something strange, something she hadn't seen in a long time. Pity, maybe, or sadness. "What's your name?" he asked. Aerie looked up, surprised. No one had asked her that since she was taken. "Aerie," she whispered. The man nodded. Then he turned to the auctioneer. "I want this one," he said. The auctioneer. A fat alien with 6 eyes and golden rings smiled. Very good, he said loudly. Let the bidding begin. The screen above Aerie's cage lit up. "Starting price, 2,000 credits, the auctioneer announced. 3,000, shouted a voice. 5, came another. 7, 10, Aerie closed her eyes. It didn't matter who bought her. Pain was pain. Chains were chains. Then she heard it. 50,000, the human said. The room went silent. Every alien turned to stare at him. 50,000. The auctioneer repeated, shocked. That is the highest bid today. He laughed nervously. Any other offers? No one spoke. They knew better than to argue with a human who looked like that. Not one who wore a soldier's coat and a scar like a badge. Sold. The auctioneer shouted to the human. The cage door opened with a loud click. Aerie didn't move. She waited for the hand to grab her, to pull her, to hit her, but the human just stood there. He didn't force her. He only said, "Come," slowly. Aerie stepped out of the cage. Her legs were weak, but she walked. He didn't touch her. He didn't chain her. He just walked beside her as they left the auction hall. Behind them, the aliens whispered, "What's he going to do with her? Maybe he's crazy. Maybe he wants a pet." Aerie didn't know either, but something about him felt different. Not safe, not yet, but not cruel. That was new. As they reached the ship dock, she looked up at him. He was typing into a console, getting ready to leave. "Why did you buy me?" she asked quietly. He looked at her for a long moment, then said only one word, "Freedom," The ship's engines hummed like a deep, sleeping beast. Ares sat in the far corner of the small cabin, knees pulled to her chest. The walls were smooth, metal, dark, and quiet. There were no bars here, no chains, no watchers. But the silence felt strange, almost like a trick. Briggs the human who had bought her was sitting at the front, pressing buttons and watching screens. He hadn't said anything since they left the station. Ari watched him carefully. She didn't trust him. Not yet. Humans had a strange reputation among the stars. Some said they were violent, others said they were heroes. Many said they were fools who followed feelings instead of rules. Ari didn't know which kind this one was. All she knew was that he paid too much for a slave, then gave her space and silence. A soft beep came from a panel near her. She flinched. But it was only a light turning green. Moments later, the ship changed direction. She felt it in her bones, a smooth shift, like the ship had taken a breath. Briggs stood up and walked toward her. Ari tensed, ready to be yelled at, grabbed, or worse, but instead he placed a small tray on the table beside her. It had warm food, a metal spoon, and a bottle of clean water. She stared at it, not moving. "Eat," he said. His voice was deep, quiet, and calm. Not a command, not really, more like an offer. She didn't trust it. She had been fed before, only to be punished for eating too fast. She waited, watching him. He didn't stay. He turned and walked back to the pilot's chair. After 5 minutes, she picked up the spoon. The food was simple warm rice, some soft vegetables, and a small square of meat. She took one bite, then another. No one hit her. No one laughed. When she finished, she stayed in the corner, trying not to fall asleep. Her body was tired, but her mind was full of sharp edges. Why did this human really buy her? What game was he playing? Was he waiting to hurt her when she let her guard down? Hours passed. Briggs said nothing, just flew the ship and watched the stars. When night came, at least night by the ship's clock, he stood and pointed at the bed in the corner. "You can sleep there," he said. "I'll take the chair." Ari didn't move. He waited for a moment, then nodded and walked back to the pilot's seat. He leaned the chair back and closed his eyes. Just like that, he went to sleep. Ari sat on the floor all night, not because she was forced, but because she didn't know how to feel safe anymore. The next day, he spoke again. "We'll reach the human colony in 4 days," he said. "It's a free place, no slaves." She looked at him with doubt. "There's no such place," she said. He raised one eyebrow. "There is," he replied. "I was born there." That was the first real thing he told her. And she didn't know what to say. On the second day, he handed her a clean towel and pointed to a door. "There's a washroom inside. Use it if you want." She took the towel. With shaking hands, "Why?" she asked. He looked confused. "Why? What? Why are you being kind?" He didn't answer right away. Then he said, "Because someone should be," and he walked away again. Each day, he gave her food, water, and space. He didn't ask for anything. Didn't demand her name again. Didn't lock doors. Ari started to sit closer. Not right next to him, but closer than before. She asked small questions. "What is that button for? What does that screen show?" He answered without anger. "Autopilot, star map, docking code." She listened carefully. No one had taught her things before. Not since her parents, before the slavers came. She had been taken so fast, the memories were a blur. The third night, a storm passed close to the ship. Not a normal storm, an ion storm, full of electricity and noise. The ship shook, lights flickered, and alarms rang. Ari panicked and grabbed the chair, breathing hard. Briggs didn't shout. He stayed calm, hands steady, voice strong. "We'll be fine," he said. "Hold on." He fought the storm like a warrior with his ship. When it was over, He leaned back and sighed. "That was close," he said. Ari stared at him, eyes wide. "You're not afraid?" "I've seen worse," he said with a small smile. Then he looked at her and added, "You've seen worse too, haven't you?" She nodded slowly. That night, she slept in the bed for the first time in weeks. She closed her eyes and didn't wake up screaming. The stars outside the window were still and silent. They looked peaceful, like tiny fires frozen in the dark. But inside the ship, there was a storm growing. Not made of light or sound, but of memory. Briggs sat alone at the control panel. Ari was asleep in the back room, finally resting like someone who believed she might see another tomorrow, but Briggs couldn't sleep. He hadn't slept well in years. He reached into the drawer beside the seat and pulled out a small silver box. He opened it slowly, like it might break in his hands. Inside was a photo of a girl, maybe 10 years old, standing in a field of yellow flowers. She had dark hair, a wide smile, and eyes just like his. She wore a necklace shaped like a star, the kind kids make from wire and beads. She had made it for him once. Long ago, he stared at the photo for a long time. Then the memory pulled him back like gravity. It had happened 15 years ago. The day he lost everything, her name had been Mara. She was his daughter, his only child. She was full of energy and questions. Always running, always laughing. Her mother had died during a colonist mission, so it had been just the two of them. Briggs was a soldier back then, but not the quiet kind he was now. He was loud, proud, known across systems as the Iron Commander. He led missions, won battles, and carried scars like trophies, but none of that mattered when he came home one day and found the house empty. The back door was open, the grass outside crushed with strange footprints. No signs of a struggle, just gone. They had taken her while he was away. The slavers moved fast by the time he found the trail. They were already off-world. The system patrol said it was unfortunate, but they were too busy to search. One officer even said, "She's just one child, Commander. Thousands go missing every year." That officer now had a scar across his cheek. Briggs had made sure of it. But a scar was nothing compared to what he felt. The helplessness, the rage, the guilt. He searched for Mara for 6 years, burned every favor, called every contact, broke laws, crossed borders. He found many things: slaver ships, stolen children, broken people, but not her. Never her. After 6 years, he stopped searching, not because he gave up, but because the truth was too heavy. If she was still alive, she was no longer a child. If she was gone, then there was nothing left to find. So he made a new promise, not to himself, but to her. "If I can't save you, I'll save others." That's how the mission began. He sold his metals, bought an old ship, and started showing up at auctions. Not to buy slaves, to steal them from fate. One by one, he bought children, women, even wounded soldiers the slavers caught. He took them to safe places, gave them food, rest, names, and freedom. Some stayed with him, helped him, others moved on, built lives, forgot him. He didn't mind. They were free, that was the goal, but it never healed the hole inside him. Mara's laugh still haunted his sleep. Her empty room still lived in his heart. He looked at Ari Nas, quiet girl with bright eyes and silent strength. She didn't know it, but she reminded him of Mara. Not in her face or voice, but in her spirit. She had survived things no one should survive. And she still walked, still watched, still hoped, even when hope made no sense. Briggs didn't believe in fate. But part of him wondered, was he saving Ari, or was he trying to rewrite history, trying to save the daughter he had lost by saving this girl now? He placed the photo back in the box and closed it slowly, as if sealing the past again. The next morning, Ari woke and found him sitting at the table. He looked tired, older than yesterday, but his voice was steady. "We'll reach the colony tomorrow." He said, "There's a home there, if you want it." Ari sat across from him. "Why?" "Do you help people like me?" she asked. Briggs looked at her for a long time. Then he answered, "Because no one helped my daughter." She didn't ask more. She didn't need to. That night, she saw the photo sitting on the dashboard. The girl in the picture had his eyes. The same eyes Ari had looked into when he saved her. And for the first time, she understood. She was more than a mission, more than a promise, to him. She was a second chance. Asterisk, the human colony was only a few hours away. The ship moved quietly, through the stars. Peaceful on the outside, but inside, danger was waking. Briggs was checking the fuel levels when the warning light blinked red. The ship's scanner beeped. Something was following them, fast, and getting closer. Ari stood near the doorway, holding a cup of warm tea. She saw his face change calm to alert. "What is it?" she asked. He didn't answer at first. He tapped the screen, pulled up data, then said softly, "Trouble." Ari walked closer and saw the display. A red dot was chasing them, closing the gap fast. "Pirates." She whispered. He shook his head. "We're slavers." It made sense. Someone must have tracked her sail. They didn't like losing profit. And they didn't forget stolen property. Briggs stood up, eyes sharp. He pressed a button and turned off the external lights, then set the ship to silent mode. No signals, no broadcasts. Just quiet running. But it was too late. The enemy ship sent a message. It came through the speakers, a voice like oil and poison. "Human ship, stop engines, surrender the slave, and we will let you live." Ari's breath caught in her throat. She stared at Briggs, waiting. Would he give her back? Would he trade her for his own life? But he didn't hesitate. He turned off the message and said, "Over my dead body." She felt her chest tighten. He wasn't lying. This man, who barely knew her, was ready to die for her. And she didn't understand why. Not completely. The enemy ship fired a warning shot. The lights flickered. The hull shook. Briggs ran to a panel and opened a hidden compartment. Inside was a heavy black weapon, long and old, a plasma rifle. He checked it, powered it up, then handed a small stun pistol to Ari, just in case. He said, "I don't know how to use this," she said, shaking. "Point and press," he replied. "Only if they come close." She stared at the pistol. It felt cold and heavy in her hands. She had never held a weapon before. The enemy ship latched onto theirs with magnetic arms. The hull groaned under the weight. A loud hiss came from the back door. Someone was trying to break in. Briggs moved fast, calm. He placed Ari inside a small storage room and whispered, "Lock the door. Stay silent no matter what you hear. I don't want to hide." She said, "You must." He said, "If I fail, you run, you survive." "But no time," he cut in. "Promise me." "I promise," she whispered. The door closed and darkness wrapped around her. But it wasn't the cold kind she remembered from the cage. This time, it was a hiding place. A chance. Outside, the airlock blew open. 3 slavers entered, tall, armored, weapons raised. Briggs stood in the hallway, waiting. "You are outnumbered," the lead slaver hissed. "Give us the girl, human." Briggs raised the plasma rifle. "You want her?" He said, "Come and bleed for it." The fight was fast and brutal. Briggs moved like a machine, sharp, strong, focused. He shot the first slaver in the chest. The second one tried to flank. But Briggs turned and blasted his leg. He ducked behind a wall as return fire burned the air. The third slaver threw a flash grenade. Light exploded. Briggs screamed and fell, blind. Ari heard everything from the small room, the blasts, the shout, the silence, then footsteps, getting closer. She held the stun pistol tight. Her heart was racing. The storage door began to open slow. Careful, she raised the pistol. A shadow appeared. She fired. The slaver screamed and dropped to the floor. Twitching, Aerie stared, frozen. She had done it. Then she ran. Down the hall, to the control room. Briggs was lying on the ground. Blood on his arm. Eyes half closed. "I told you to stay hidden," he groaned. "I'm not leaving you," she said. She dragged him toward the medkit. Used what she had learned by watching him, stopped the bleeding, gave him a stim shot. The ship was shaking again. Auto systems warning of breach. Aerie ran to the controls. Briggs reached up, helped guide her hands, vent the docking bay. He said, she did. The broken enemy lock released. The slaver ship drifted away. Powerless silence returned. Real silence, not fear, not hiding. Later, Briggs sat with a bandage on his arm. Aerie sat beside him, holding the empty stun pistol. "I didn't run," she said. "I know," he replied. "You didn't break your promise either." She added, "No," he said, smiling a little, "you did." The human colony appeared in the distance like a pearl floating in black water. It wasn't a big city, not like the ones shown in old space movies. But it was safe, and for people like Aerie, safe was something new. Tall glass towers stood beside. Green parks and clear rivers. Solar panels caught the light like wings, and children ran freely in open spaces without fear. No cages, no chains. No buyers, only people. Briggs landed the ship at the colony's outer dock. A security officer scanned the ship and nodded. "Welcome back, Colonel," he said. Then looked at Aerie. "And who's this?" Briggs stepped forward. "She's free," he said. The officer smiled. "Then she's home." Those words felt strange to Aerie. Home. She had almost forgotten what that meant. They walked together into the main registration building. The walls were white and warm, filled with art made by children, paintings of stars, trees, and smiling faces. It didn't feel like any place she'd ever known. This place had hope in the walls. A kind woman at the desk greeted them. "Name?" Briggs nodded toward Aerie. "Tell her," he said. Aerie stepped closer, voice low. "Aerie," the woman smiled. "Do you want to keep that name, or choose a new one?" Aerie paused. She looked at Briggs. He gave a small nod. Her name was hers. Now, no one could take it again. "I'll keep it," she said. "Aerie." The woman typed on the screen. "Done," she said. "You're officially registered Aerie, citizen of Colony Terra 9. Do I have to live here?" Aerie asked. "No," the woman replied, "but you are always welcome." Outside, Briggs sat on a bench, breathing slowly. His arm still hurt from the fight, but the pain was light now. Aerie joined him. "They gave me papers," she said. He raised an eyebrow. "You don't need papers to be free." "I know," she said, "but it feels real now." They sat in silence for a moment. Then Aerie turned to him. "What happens now?" He looked up at the sky. "I don't know," he said honestly. "You have a choice now. That's the point." She nodded. "I could stay here." She said, "You could." He agreed. "It's safe. There's school, work, even music." She looked down at her hands. They no longer shook like before. She had held a weapon, saved a life, and faced death. She had grown stronger not by choice, but by survival. Or, she said, "I could go with you." He looked at her. "You don't owe me anything." "I know." She replied, "But I want to help others, like you helped me." He studied her face. It was still young. But the pain hadn't crushed her. It had shaped her into something sharp and clear, like a sword pulled from fire. "You sure?" he asked. She nodded. "I won't be a passenger. I'll be your crew." Briggs smiled. "The ship could use someone smarter than me." "That's easy," she said, smiling back. They returned to the ship that night. Before leaving, Aerie stood at the colony gate and looked back. Then she pressed a small button on a pad she was given. A screen lit up, ready to record a message. She spoke slowly, her voice steady. This message is for any child anywhere who is locked in a cage. They may call you property. They may measure your body like you are something to sell, but they are wrong. You are not a thing. Key: you are not for sale. You are a person, and someone out there will see you. Like he saw me. She paused. Looked at the stars. They measured me like livestock, she said. But the human who paid the price gave me freedom instead. And now, I will give that freedom to others. She ended the recording. The message would be broadcast across open networks, not just to humans, to anyone who was listening. Back on the ship, Briggs set the new course. The stars stretched. Ahead, endless and quiet, Aerie took the co-pilot seat. Her hands were steady, eyes bright. She was not a passenger anymore. Briggs glanced at her and asked, "Ready?" She nodded. "Let's go find the next cage to break." The ship lifted off, and two small lives, shaped by pain, flew into the dark, not to escape it, but to bring the light. 1 year later. Across 10 different star systems, a name began to rise, not a military fleet, not a government order, just a story, a whisper, a shadow that flew in and shattered chains. They called the ship the Wild Star. Some said it was a ghost, others said it was a warship from an old human war. But those who were rescued knew the truth. Inside that ship flew two people. One, a quiet man with silver hair and a scar across his face. The other, a young girl with bright eyes and fire in her voice. They didn't follow orders. They didn't ask for permission. They only listened to one thing: freedom. Briggs was older now, slower too, but his mind was sharp. He taught Aerie how to fly, how to fight, and how to read between lies. She picked it up fast. It's past, sometimes. And when she spoke to slavers, she didn't just fight, she made them afraid. They had saved 73 people so far. Each one given food, water, a place to sleep. Some joined them for a while, others left to find family, but all of them remembered the Wild Star. And the girl with fire in her hands. One mission had gone viral across the colony networks. A slaver. Base on a small frozen moon, protected by turrets, traps, and guards. But the Wild Star had landed in the storm. Briggs distracted the guards while Aerie snuck through underground vents. She shut down the power grid with only 2 wires and a magnet. By the time the guards realized what was happening, 50 cages had opened. 50 voices screaming for air and light. They didn't kill the slavers. They tied them up and dropped them at the edge of a human patrol zone. A simple message written on their uniforms: property of no one. That message spread across stations, across moons, across colonies. People began to listen. People began to believe. One night, as stars passed silently outside the ship window, Aerie sat with a small group of rescued children. She was telling them stories. Not about monsters, but about heroes, real ones, the kind who made choices. Briggs watched from the hallway. He saw her smile, saw her laugh. It reminded him of someone, Mara, his daughter. But Aerie was not a replacement. She was something new, stronger than he had ever been. Later, she sat beside him at the ship's window. "Do you think they'll remember us?" she asked. Briggs looked at her and nodded. "If not us," he said, "then the ones we save." She held a small badge in her hand. It had a simple logo, a broken chain wrapped around a star. They never made it official, but those who wore it knew what it meant. Freedom was not given, it was taken back. On their next mission, things went wrong. They arrived at a desert moon. A trap had been set. The slavers had learned their patterns. They used fake distress signals, lured the wild. Star and Briggs and Aerie were surrounded by machines, flying drones with auto targets and net guns. Briggs fired back, his old rifle roaring. Aerie jumped onto a high ledge and threw a shock grenade. The battle lasted only minutes, but Briggs took a hit to the leg. Aerie dragged him to cover. "I told you we needed a better exit plan," she said. I told you to stop stealing my lines. He replied. They both laughed, even under fire. They laughed. In the end, they won. The drones were destroyed. And the slaver tech was hacked. Ari broadcast the whole thing on open channels. Nice try, she said into the camera. Next time, send a real challenge. That video went viral. More than 3 million views across colony networks. People began to send them messages. Thank you, help us, join us. But Ari and Briggs didn't want to be famous. They just wanted to keep flying, one mission at a time. One cage at a time. Before bed, Ari wrote something in her notebook, a sentence she'd been thinking about for months. They measured me like livestock, she wrote. But I was born to burn through cages. And burn she did, with every rescue, every broken lock. Every freed child, her fire spread. Not the fire of war, but the fire of hope. Briggs watched her grow from a silent girl into a legend, and though his body grew weaker, his heart felt full. He had failed to save his daughter, but he had saved something just as precious. A new fire, a new legacy, and in the stars above, that fire kept flying, forever free. The stars hadn't changed. They still hung in the sky like silent watchers. But Ari had changed, and so had the galaxy. It had been 2 years since the mission on the desert moon. 2 years since she first picked up a weapon. 2 years since she stopped being a rescued girl and became a rescuer. Briggs was no longer flying. His injuries had worsened. He now lived in a quiet house near the colony's green hills. His body rested, but his voice still guided her. Every message, every mission, every plan she ran through him first. Now, Ari flew alone. Okay. But she was never truly alone. The wild star still roamed the dark. But now there were others. Ships with different names, different flags. But the same fire. She had inspired them. Not by asking, but by acting. They called themselves the Free Sparks. And they didn't follow rules. They followed purpose. Some were ex-slaves. Others were ex-soldiers. A few were just dreamers who wanted to see a better galaxy. They came from different worlds, different pasts. But when Ari called, they answered, today. She was not answering a distress call. She was creating one. A trap. Slavers had returned to a forgotten station orbiting a dead world, a place called Driftspire. It used to be a science hub. Now it was a cage of shadows. Reports said children were being kept there, used in illegal tests. Others said the station was full of stolen, tech-banned weapons. Brain chips, memory erasers. Ari didn't care what they were selling if they had cages. They were getting burned. Her ship dropped out of warp, near the planet's orbit. She wore a black flight suit with her custom badge, a broken chain around. A burning star. Her hair was shorter now, her eyes sharper, her face marked by tiny scars and experience. She looked like a young soldier, but moved like something older than war. Signal the sparks, she said into the comm. They'll be here in 10 minutes, replied her ship AI. Ari leaned back. Plenty of time to knock. She flew solo into Driftspire. Slipping past old scanners, the station was half broken. Metal hanging loose like shattered teeth. Inside, lights flickered. Alarms blinked red. They weren't ready. She blasted through the lower docking bay, landed hard. Smoke rose behind her. Ari stepped out with a stun baton and a pulse pistol. I'm not here to negotiate, she said to the first guard she saw. Then she dropped him with one clean shot. The station woke in panic. Slavers screamed into radios. Who is it? What force is this? Which government sent you? Ari walked calmly through the halls. No government, she said over open channels. No orders. Just a girl who remembers the cage. She found the first cell block. 3 children inside, no older than 8. She knelt by the control panel. Do you want to go home? They nodded fast, eyes wide. The door slid open. Ari handed them tracking beacons. Follow the lights, she said. Help is waiting. More guards came. She dropped smoke. Moved fast. One by one, she disarmed, stunned, and passed. She wasn't trying to win a war. She was trying to save lives. By the time the free sparks arrived, Ari had opened 5 cell blocks. 15 people freed, and counting. The station commander tried to run. He made it to the escape pod bay, only to find Ari already there. Waiting, he raised his hands. Please, I'm worth more alive. Ari didn't flinch. You were never worth anything. She shot the pod controls, sealed the doors, and called her crew. Package ready, she said. Later, they broadcast another message across the open galaxy. A short one, recorded by Ari herself. This is the wild star, she said. Another cage is broken, another fire lit. If you're out there, if you're trapped, hold on. We're coming. She didn't shout, she didn't cry. She just told the truth. And truth burned brighter than any weapon back on the colony. Briggs watched the message from his small home. He smiled. Good girl, he whispered, then leaned back. Looking at the sky, he had started a fire, but she had turned it into a movement, and somewhere, in the dark between worlds, more sparks began to rise. More cages began to crack because one girl had chosen not to run. And because one human had paid the price to show her she was never a thing. She was a flame.